right. Hi, y'all. Welcome to another episode. This is episode 13, or this is also known as season 2, episode 2. Okay. I struggled so much of how to figure out how to label these. I'm just going to label them both ways. Anyway. All right. So in this episode, I want to talk about first date number 2. Oh my God. I'm taking us to like a horrible throwback for myself. First date number 2, I want to talk about survival techniques, and especially when you're dating, and more specifically today, I want to talk about how to escape from duct tape, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so, okay, I'm reliving this, which is proof that I love you guys and I care about you guys, because this is still one of my least favorite fucking first dates, right? Okay, so at this point, I've been on 61 first dates. I've never felt unsafe. I've always, walked away, learning some sort of lesson, and I've always walked away knowing that this would make you guys laugh and would be helpful to you in some way, right? Okay, so as I always say, like, specifically to my soldiers, fucking learn from me. All right, so... But in my defense, this was first date. Oh, by the way, pun intended. This was first date number 2. Okay. So I picked up Ike and packed up all his stuff for one weekend. He loves to travel. I love to travel. We love to explore, hike, the whole bit, whatever. We are famous for just driving around with like my Jeep down too. We just love to be outside. Anyway, so one weekend I decided to visit a friend who had a new boyfriend at the time, and they live about 2 hours from me, right? So Ike and I decided to go for the weekend. So we got all of our stuff ready. It was beautiful weather. This part of New York, by the way, I live in the Southern Tier, is fucking gorgeous. Anyway, so we got in the Jeep, we had music going, like life was awesome. I had coffee. Ike, had his head out the window. I was like singing really loudly. I was like obsessed with like Bob Dylan at the time. I mean, I still am, but that's what I was singing very loudly. It was a great fucking trip, right? So great trip. We see my friend, it was a great hug. She's moving into this new house with her new boyfriend at the time. It was gorgeous. They had this like extra like room set up for me and Ike. It was fucking cute and sweet, and it was awesome. And I love to hang out with people, right? And I love to explore. So the two of them together, I was like fucking excited, right? So, I unpacked the Jeep, we let Ike, explore the house, we hung out, had a couple of drinks, I believe. And then we talked about what we were going to do for the weekend. And I was kind of like, let's just go out for the weekend, hang out, like I enjoy your company. I don't care what we do. And she's like, cool, right? So, so I'm stupidly like hanging out in the house, whatever. We're catching up. And then she's like, oh, so we're going to go to such and such's house. Of course, I'm not going to say names. She was like, and it's going to be like a barbecue. It's like going to be like an actual Korean barbecue. Like the food's really good. I've had it before. The lady like makes most of it from scratch. Like it's going to be fucking awesome. I'm like, holy shit, that's great. I love Korean food. And of course, we'll be outside. Like who doesn't love like a barbecue, right? So we're like, holy fuck, this will be awesome. And then we talked about, bringing Ike or not. And I was like, no, we'll let him stay behind. We're not going to be gone that long, right? And she's like, no, a couple hours at the most. We're just going to go eat. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? Grave mistake number 1. I did not bring my Jeep. Okay. So we're getting ready. She's like, yeah, we're going to leave in such and such time, jump in the shower, whatever you need. I'm like, okay, cool. So as we're getting into her car, she's like, so, before we head out there, we're going to stop by a liquor store, beer store, wine store, whatever. She was like, you might want to pick up something because, it's not just the 3 of us. There's going to be 4 of us. And I was like, what? What do you mean 4? I was like, me, you, your boyfriend, friend's house. What do you mean? Because I'm kind of stupid sometimes. Then it hit me, bam, fuck, this is a blind date, right? So I was like, motherfucker. But I love her, right? I miss her. I haven't seen her in a long time. So I was like, all right, we'll make the best of it. So of course we go beer store, wine store, liquor store, whatever, right? So I pick up lambic for me. I picked up a couple of like local breweries, for like our guest. And I don't remember. I bought way too much shit. Anyway, so we get there, which is just my style. But anyway, so we get there and... beautiful house, like beautiful weather. I didn't have Ike with me, so I regretted, I instantly regretted it because there's beautiful like privacy fence or whatever. Anyway, so we sit down, her friends are awesome. I mean, they're friends of friends, but they're awesome. Like her boyfriend's awesome. I've known them for a while, right? So we're like all catching up talking. And then all of a sudden, like in a bad Lifetime movie, kind of, it's really tall. Granted, he is attractive, but this really tall guy like walks up, sits down, and we're like at the end of this really long table, right? So there's like 4 of us, and he's like directly across from me. And he's like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, great, whatever. So I'm actually a good sport. I'm a nice person, but I tried really hard. Anyway, throughout this dinner, this, barbecue lunch that was supposed to be 2 hours was awesome. Like the host was adorable. Food was great, great friends, great time. We had music on the whole bit. It was awesome. And then as the night went on, everybody started drinking more and more, right? People, including myself, became less sober, right? And this guy and we didn't click. Like, we didn't dislike each other at this point, but I could tell there was no chemistry, right? I mean, I could just tell, like, in any way, whatever. So, but it was fine. I was making the best of it, right? And remember, I didn't fucking have my Jeep. So I really had to make the best of it, right? I couldn't just leave. So, I don't know, in my head, out of the fucking blue, because then I don't even remember how it came up in conversation. I mean, I have like a flag, fucking tattoo on my arm. So it's kind of obvious that I'm patriotic. People may not know instantly that I'm in the Army, but people know at least, I care about our country, right? So I didn't have anything else Army related. Very seldomly, aside from a grunt tree, do I walk out with anything that screams Army per se, right? Or exactly. Anyway, so out of the blue, the guy like leans over, right? I'm eating because, I'm stuffing my fucking face, right? Chugging lambic or whatever the fuck I had. Anyway, so I'm living my little best life with my little meal in my glass, right? Anyway, he like leans over. I'll never forget this as long as I live because it felt like he kicked me in my teeth. But he like leaned over and he was like, yeah, so they tell me that you're in the Army. And I was like, well, yes, I am in the Army. And he's like, yeah, so I was in and I did blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I was like, did you retire? And he was like, no, I did one tour. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, so, this is what I do now. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool, whatever. And then he was like, what do you do again? So I explained. I was like, well, like I joined as a 12 Romeo. I wasn't a great electrician, but I met combat camera in Panama and I immediately reclassed. So most of my career have been combat camera. It's been fucking awesome, right? I've traveled a lot, because of the Army. Best fucking job ever. Unfortunately, at the moment I'm a recruiter, but I hope to go back to combat camera. So he's like half listening, right? I could tell. Looks at me and he was like, so you're not really in the Army then? And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, well, you're fucking pogue. Like, you've never been in the infantry. By the way, this guy has never been in the infantry, by the way. He was a fucking MP. One fucking tour. Anyway, so I didn't know how to take it at first. And I was instantly pissed off because for those of you who don't know, pogue is a fucking huge insult. Granted, I am a pogue. Pogue stands for a person other than grunt, right? I am a pogue. I'm not in the infantry. But that fucking stranger on a blind fucking date calling me a pogue over dinner and not kidding about it, like being totally serious, that's a fucking insult. Like, that's like, I mean, he might as well really have fucking kicked me in my teeth. Like, I was instantly pissed, right? That's kind of like a slick sleeve joke. Like, there's some jokes that are funny in the Army and some aren't. That's fucking like, that was fucking first blood, right? So I was, I hate to say this, Mom, but I was not very polite back, right? So I was angry back, and he was angry back. We both said some things. Well, I know I said some things that I don't regret. I don't know how he felt, but I was pissed, right? And my friends were horrified, right? Because they were sitting next to me. And I felt bad for them because I know that their intentions were good, and I appreciate that. But it's interesting because if you have not had a conversation with your friends or family about what you like in dating, or like quality traits, personality traits, you probably should mention them. Hopefully, you will not get thrown on a surprise blind date like I was. But I think it's important to know, for your friends and family, to know what you like and don't like, right? Like, I think in this scenario, my friends are awesome. They're sweet. They're friends of his. Like, they get along with him. They get along with me. I'm in the Army. He did a tour in the Army. So I think in their defense, they thought we would get along. And for whatever reason, because chemistry's weird, right? Either you have it or you don't have it. We did not get along. And if I see him again, it's going to be not friendly. Again, Mom, I'm sorry. But anyway, the reason I bring up this story, this was first date number 2, right? He basically belittled my career. He insulted me. It was not a great first date, right? And it happened to be a blind date, which I will never go on ever again. And I have learned through my 61 dates, if I don't like something at this point, I'm going to say it. This date, first date number 2, I just sat there miserable because I was trying to be a good friend, right? That 2 hours or so that my friend was like, oh yeah, we're only going to be there for 2 hours. We were there for 6.5 hours. And I learned a couple of lessons that I want to share from you or with you, right? Like I always say, like I always tell my soldiers, fucking learn from me. Okay. Grave mistake number one, I did not bring my Jeep, right? So if you end up on a first date, heaven forbid it's a blind date, always have transportation. I never ever let a first date pick me up. I will meet somebody somewhere, right? But I will never let them pick me up because I always want to have a fucking way out. Like transportation is a big fucking deal, right? I'm not angry about this because, you know, I still hung out with my friends. But if I had had my Jeep, I would have left, right? I wouldn't have sat there miserable, right? So transportation is a big fucking deal, especially on a first date, right? If you're going out there, you've never met somebody, I've talked about it before, you need to fucking have a video call to make sure that's the right person, right? You need to have some sort of like safety app on your phone, you know, whether it's Noon Light or what have you. Like people need to know where you're going, right? Like I'll go into, I know I've talked about it before and I will go into more detail of how to screen people, but going back to this scenario, right? First date number 2, I didn't have transportation. So I kind of fucked myself there, right? So, and then I didn't talk about, or I didn't even think about an escape plan because this was only my first date, right? You know, with this person, well, technically blind date, whatever, but I didn't have like an escape plan, right? So that's always my other thing, right? So you need to make sure that that person's like a real person, right? You need to have your own transportation and you need to get a plan together in your head of how you're going to get out. Like you need to have an escape plan, right? Okay. So the escape plan perfect segue, like leads me into Clint Emerson, right? So Clint Emerson, if you've never heard of him before, he's a retired Navy SEAL. He's the coolest fucking shit guy. He's an awesome guy. Really smart. I think he's written like 5 or 6 books at this point. They're all about survival and, you know, and techniques. And he was in SEAL Team 3 and then 6. And I think he worked with the NSA. But anyway, he's the coolest shit guy and he knows his shit, right? Anyway, so he did a series not too long ago for 511, right? The badass tactical clothes, right? I have like way too many 511 shit. But anyway, and love them. But if you don't know, oh my God, if you haven't heard of 511, please Google 511. Please Google Clint Emerson and you will instantly find the series that I'm talking about, right? So when I was like online the other day thinking about like safety tips and escape and like the series and how I wanted to present it to you, I stumbled on Clint Emerson's YouTube videos, right? So I'm going to link to them. I'm going to do my best to, you know, explain some of his techniques, but please, please, please take a look at his videos when you have time. And more importantly, share them with your friends and family. Okay. Because these apply whether you're on a date or not, right? Okay, so the first one, heaven forbid, right? You're on a first date and you end up in a scenario where it's clear that they have bad intentions for you, right? So if somebody is trying to take possession of you, right? This may not even be a first date. Honestly, come on, let's face it. It's going to be fucking 2022, right? You could just be like walking like your dog, right? You could be just going like the grocery store, gas station, whatever. If someone is going to attack you, right, they're going to use a restraint, right? So they're going to overpower you in some way and they're going to use a restraint, right? So duct tape is the number one form of restraints that people who have bad intentions for you use because it's cheap, it's easy to find, right? So heaven forbid you're in a struggle with someone, right? Because I do not want this to happen. But if you're in a fucking struggle with someone and it's clear that you cannot win this struggle and you can't get away, please think about this. When you're in a struggle with someone, someone's fighting you, they're trying to overpower you, they're trying to hurt you, your goal is to survive, right? Your goal is to like win the war, lose the battle if you have to, right? So if you're in a situation where someone is attacking you and you cannot win, you cannot get out, you can't escape, you can't run, let them restrain your hands, your wrists. Most likely it's going to be duct tape, right? Let them do it. Do it with your hands open, your fingers open. This expands your wrist. So if somebody is struggling with you, they're hitting you in the head, you just cannot get out, whatever, temporarily surrender. Temporarily, please, only temporarily, because remember, you want to win the war, right? So if you take your hand and you put it around your wrist right now, if you open your hand, close your hand, open your fingers, wiggle your fingers, you're going to feel with your hand that your wrist is already bigger than it is if it's not, right? So if somebody's going to restrain you, right, keep your hands open, keep your fingers open if you can, calmly let them restrain you with duct tape. Because if you're fighting with them and that duct tape goes on your wrist and it's all jacked up and tangled, you're going to have a much harder time freeing yourself. So remember, in this situation, I want you to win. I don't want anybody to lose any kind of fight, any struggle, whatever. But sometimes you need to temporarily, surrender, and you need to do this calmly so that way you can escape, right? Because your goal is to survive. Okay. So when they tape you, right, and you have your hands open, your fingers open, right, you're going to end up somewhere, right? God, I don't fucking know, some warehouse, house, whatever. You're going to end up somewhere. When you were there, one of the easiest ways to escape duct tape is if you have a razor blade, like a straight razor, right? So within his video, he's going to show you ways that you can hide the razor, right? So I personally have not used a razor technique, though I love it and I think it's brilliant. I just have not done it. What I do is I have 3 blades on my body at all time. I don't mean in my backpack. I don't carry a purse. I mean, I have 3 fucking knives on my body at all fucking times, right? I'm not going to tell you where they are because heaven forbid somebody attacks me, but I don't carry a purse. I don't carry a backpack hardly ever. I have 3 knives on my body, and they are strategically positioned to help myself in a scenario if I need it, right? So think about this too, right? If you don't have a razor blade, if you don't have like a knife on you, also think about like what's in the room, like what can you use, right? Piece of wire, whatever, right? The corner of a table, whatever. You can use friction to break duct tape, right? Within his video, and this technique I have actually used before for fun, you know, just like the Army always teaches you like repetition, right? So heaven forbid, like I'm actually in a situation where I'm duct taped, my repetition will kick in, right? So like all my learning, like all that training kind of kicks in. So one of the things that is taught often is a wedge, right? So remember, you have your hands taped with duct tape, right? Take your arms straight in front of you with all of the power and anger that you can muster, launch your elbows to your rib cage, and that's called a wedge, right? If you do that hard and powerful enough, you're going to snap the duct tape. So that's called a wedge. Definitely practice with that because it's a little bit of an art form, but in this scenario, your goal is to survive, right? I've done this and I've bruised the fuck out of myself before because I had like a watch on, but it doesn't matter because the goal is to survive, right? Okay, so razor blade would be ideal, right? Some sort of knife is my recommendation. If you don't have either of those though, a wedge will work. If your feet are taped and you can't get out and you can't find any tool or whatever, the best thing to do is to somehow get your body to stand up. Once you're standing up, when your feet are flat on the floor, right, and your ankles are taped together, you want to squat down, like launch yourself into the ground. That will break the tape. So heaven forbid you need to know how to use a wedge or to squat down quickly, or I really just don't want this to happen, but I want people to be safe out there, right? So if you guys have any questions about the duct tape and how to survive, just in general, Clint Emerson, highly fucking recommend. Like I said, I'll go ahead and link in my YouTube video. That way you can see all the shit that he's done. And then you can see examples of the wedge and the squatting down, right? And then the razor blade. So if you guys have any questions about anything, as usual, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help you. I'm here for you. If you guys need anything, this is definitely a time where we should continue to reach out to each other. Everything that's happening in Afghanistan really fucking sucks. It fucking breaks my heart. I've linked to the suicide prevention number on all of my social media platforms. I'm fucking here for you. So please fucking call me, message me, text me, whatever. Like, we're here for each other. We will get through this together. And more importantly, if you served in Afghanistan, thank you. Your time was not wasted. You made a fucking difference and you are still making a fucking difference, right? So fuck the news, fuck what all those like fucking keyboard warriors are saying. You made a difference, right? You made lives better, right? I think most of us were there for the chance of peace, right? So we were willing to risk everything for the chance of peace. And I think a lot of us still feel that same way, right? So your time was not wasted. I'm here for you. Hopefully you don't go on a bad first date. If you do, and you end up in duct tape, remember, calmly let them tape you, right? Think about a razor blade, think about the wedge, squat down very quickly, fucking get out of there. The next episode, I'm going to talk about how to get out of a trunk. So heaven forbid you're taped, you're in a trunk. There's some tips out there to help you, right? So if you have any questions, always reach out. That is it for today. I'm here for you. And bye.